Looks like we're live.
We are live. So, hey, ladies, it's so good to see you again. It's Rosanne Austin and Chris Axelrad, and we're so excited to be here with you today. We're going to be talking about taking the fear out of 40, Chris, because we get into this completely, it's a very interesting state to be in when we have kind of this looming number. Like 40 is like the end of our lives, fertility wise, and that we put all this fear around 40. So the point of our discussion today is to get real information about that and really think about different ways to look at that aren't so incredibly fear-based. Mm-hmm. And so for those of you who are joining us that don't know Chris and I, first of all, my name again is Rosanne Austin. I'm the creator of the Fearlessly Fertile Method. I am the author of Am I the Reason I'm Not Getting Pregnant? The Fearlessly Fertile Method for Clearing the Blocks Between You and Your Baby. And Chris Axelrad is the founder of the Axelrad Clinic and also the author of Awakening the Seed. Yes. Chris and I both have best-selling books. We are experts in the area of fertility. We own our separate lanes. Mine is mindset, Chris is the body. And so we're super delighted to have all of you here. So, Chris, what kind of inspired me on this topic with regard to taking the fear out of 40 is, I've worked with women all over the world who are either just before they're turning 40 and certainly well into their 40s. And it's like this number 40, our age, it just is this thing that people just figure once they get to that close to that age, that everything just falls apart. Mm-hmm. And you and I both know that women get pregnant in their 40s all the time. It's just a different game, right? It's a different game. And I think that's one of the things that as a mindset coach, I really like to encourage women to think about is it doesn't mean the end. It just means that things are going to be a little different. Because it would be disingenuous to say that the situation is the same back when you were 18 as you are when you're 40. It's not the same. No. You have your body's different. Your level of wisdom is different. Your experiences are different. Things are just different. So one of the things that I always tell women is just, it's different. It's not the end. It's just different. And you may require some additional support that you didn't need before. That's right. And that's in and of itself not a bad thing. What do you think?
I 100% agree. I think that, it's important to keep in mind that it's just a number. Even though, everybody who's 40 has been around the sun 40 times. So we know that. So they have that in common, but there's a lot of other, every single human being is completely unique. How we age is unique. How we deal with aging is unique, and how we can do things to reverse, because it is possible to reverse aging. Absolutely 100%. And I talk about that a lot in my book. I talk about the fact that every human, all of us, our bodies are continually trying to heal and regenerate. And so it doesn't matter if we're 30, 20, 40, 50, we all have that capacity to replenish and regenerate ourselves. And if someone's having trouble at 40, people who are at 40 years old, they look 30, they act 30. Then there's people at 40 years old who look 45, 50, who act 45, 50, 60. They're more tired. Yeah. And it's not that person A is going to have an easier time getting pregnant than person B, because these are the things that we can never know. I've had so many patients over the years, thousands and thousands, and I can't tell you how many people I've seen where if I would have just, prejudged their outcome based on their age or based on their health or whatever, I would have written them off. But I never do that. And I always hold space for the possibility for any of my patients to get pregnant. That goes with people in my clinic or people that I'm seeing online, because you just don't know who is and who isn't going to get pregnant. And it doesn't have anything to do with age, and it certainly doesn't It does have something to do with a couple of very important factors. I think one is obviously the level of self-care someone's willing to put in. When we have the kind of self-care, especially the kind of self-care that's the map that I've put into my book, that self-care map is very simple. It's very easy. I mean, it's like anybody can do it. A caveman can do it. Cavewoman can do it. I think I used that same expression last time we were on a call. So easy. A caveman can do it.
Isn't that like
But
a Geico commercial or something? That's like an
yeah,
insurance commercial, right?
Geico commercial. And then and then they made a commercial that the cavemen were protesting that people were treating that the Neanderthals were being, treated differently, and so they had to kill
Neanderthal hate.
Neanderthal hate. But anyway, long story short is, most people don't want it to be simple. But the bottom line is very simple self-care can activate and enhance that regenerative intelligence really in your body and allow it to do its work. It doesn't matter what age you are. That's probably the most important thing when it comes to fertility at any age. Now, when someone's 21, there's so much of that abundance of that healing capacity that you don't have to even think about it. It's just happening. You're still growing, really. By the time you're in your mid 30s, that healing capacity is already a little bit on the decline, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. It doesn't mean it's gone. In fact, it's very much there, and it can be very much enhanced and cultivated and really just completely transformed in a way that helps not only egg quality, but the ability to stay pregnant, the ability to have a wonderfully beautiful, healthy pregnancy, and obviously to give birth to a very healthy baby. I mean, I've had patients, the record so far for me is 45, 45 who got pregnant with their own egg, but I've had many younger than that, 44, 43, 42, 41, all the way, you name it. And I have patients that are in their 20s that are really having a lot of trouble. So if you're over 40 and you think, woe is me, there's a lot of people that are a lot younger than you who are also having a lot of trouble. We're all in this together. We have to focus, and they have to do the same things, believe it or not. So,
right.
Age is not like the ultimate determinant, although it is an important factor. There's no doubt.
Right. And I think that's an interesting point because I had a client and she was actually on my podcast, Marin, and she had this hardcore fear about having a baby at 40. And we laugh about it now. And she talks about, she's like, well, I didn't have my baby at 40. I'm having my baby at 41 because she got pregnant. And there's so much story that we build around these fairly, it's not entirely arbitrary to say that the game changes a little bit at 40. It's not entirely arbitrary, but the stories we tell about it are. And, it's funny. I think we have seen in our respective practices, plenty of women get pregnant in their 40s. Mm-hmm. My record so far is 50, but that's what we see in those scenarios are women who are willing to do the work to take care of themselves. And I say work very lightly. It doesn't have to be a baton death march in order to prepare yourself for having a baby, but it all begins with the story that you tell about being that age, because for a lot of women, we disconnect from the fact that part of the reason why we may have waited to have babies in our 40s is we're building careers. We're building a solid foundation for these families. And so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to get stuck in this spin cycle of, beating yourself up about age. Think about why you waited. Maybe you were waiting for the right partner. Maybe you were waiting for financial stability. Maybe you were waiting to, get to a certain place in your life in some other area of your life. And so the first thing is to take the fear out of it. There's always there's always a chance. And if you take really great care of yourself, more often than not, you're going to find yourself, probably having a very different experience than you expected. It doesn't have to be all suffering, having babies in their 40s. And frankly, having had a baby at 43, after years and years of failure and being told it would never happen, I can tell you that having my son in my 40s, oh my gosh, I I am so glad he came when I was in my 40s, not when I wanted him, in the very beginning. Like, I am so glad he came at that time. So, what do you think are some of the upsides, Chris, that we can help these women like take the fear out of 40 and see maybe some of the gifts of having babies in their 40s?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a little bit like jumping out of an airplane. You're never ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're never ready. But for someone over 40 or 40 who is a little worried about that, the main thing to keep in mind is it's a journey. And once you jump out that little plane window, you're going to be like flying, and you're either going to make that journey really scary and really hard, or you're going to enjoy it, enjoy the view, and get a kick out of it. And what I would say is that when you want to go forward like that, the first thing that is important is to realize that you can't go back and change the past. You can't go back and suddenly rewrite when you decide to start trying to have kids. And like Roseanne said, there's an upside to having kids later in life. I mean, I know that like probably like you, Roseanne, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, when I probably was, at my prime reproductive age, just like a female is. I would not have been like the most awesome dad. I can tell you that right now. I was
I have
way
a hard time
focused on a
believing that,
lot of
Chris.
other stuff, man. I was so wrapped up in myself and my own goals and my own ambitions. And I think that, not that everybody that age is like that. I know a lot of younger patients that I've had, and even people that I know who had kids younger who are amazing parents, but I certainly probably would not have been. And um, being a little older when you're a parent for the first time, you can bring a lot more wisdom to the game, and a lot more, and you're also just a more mature person. So your appreciation for that child, and especially if you've had to struggle a little bit to get, or even a lot to get that child, the appreciation and the gratitude that you have for that child is something that I don't think that would probably not be there if you were 25, 30, 32, whatever, and you were having that child at that point. So, but at the end of the day, it really just boils down to this. It's something I talk about in my book. It's called relentless forward focus. I mean, it's called the law of forward focus, which is, if you're looking back and you're second guessing, all that energy that you're using to look back and second guess is energy you could be using to look in front of you and take that next step with clarity. Take that next step with clarity. So I would say that's the biggest, again, the biggest thing is making that decision that you're just going to, like, I'm just going to do this. I mean, I'm not sure what the outcome is going to be. Yeah, it's scary. Yeah, it could go wrong. Like, the parachute might not open. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could go wrong. But at the end of the day, the things that could go right, and the fun that I can have is like way outweighs any of that other stuff. And I'm just going to make this jump and see where I land, and see what the experience is like flying through the air and all that. Because that's really that journey of what you're going to need to do between now and the time that you have your baby. That's different for everybody.
Right.
And if you look at it as an adventure and as something that, it's like, I'm just going to do this because it's a really exciting adventure, and not something like, oh, all the things that go wrong. I mean, I have people sometimes, I'm sure you hear this too. It's like, they're not even pregnant yet. They're already worrying about the college fund for the kid. I'm like, let's get the kid here first. You're going to have all kinds of other stuff to worry about besides the college fund anyway. You don't even have time to worry about that once the kid is here. So, let's not even like worry about, by the time my kid graduates high school, I'm going to be 60. Well, you're going to be 60 anyway. Do you want to be 60 with a kid or 60 without a kid? I mean,
well, I think that's such a good point though, Chris, because we get obsessed. I think we forget what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we forget that we're on the road to our baby. Like, take a step back and think about that. Like, and what I tell my ladies to do a lot is tell me, like, what's awesome about having a baby in your 40s? Like, list that. What is awesome about being a mom in your 40s? And I think that's a really important exercise, because the reality is if we're using a measure that applied in the 1950s, that you're supposed to have 3 kids by the time you're 25, because, you know, like, that just doesn't apply to the way that women live their lives now.
Right.
You know, we're CEOs, we're leaders of organizations, we're out there doing these things, and we're using an old measure. And that's how, like, it was stunning to me how, when I think about my own journey and how terrified I was. And it was like, yeah, they're giving me all these statistics, they're telling me all these things, but they don't know me. Like, and that's what I always encourage women to do as well, is look back at your personal history. Chances are you have a personal history of beating odds in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yes, those statistics are there. Give them whatever weight you choose to give them. But don't forget that you're a critical factor in all this. If you have a history of beating odds, then why wouldn't you be in this, you know, whatever percentage you're looking at of success? What if you just made the decision you're going to be part of that percent that does it? Like, how different? I mean, that kind of dovetails into what you were saying, is this the law of forward focus. If you're focused on winning or succeeding as opposed to what the shit could go wrong, how much more productive are you going to be? What are the different choices you will make with that as your framework, as opposed to being stuck in a place that, well, gee, I guess I should have had kids instead of going to college, or gee, maybe I should have had kids instead of having this business or whatever. That's also
becoming a prosecutor and right.
Yeah, I mean, that's all built on this idea that somebody else's impulse is better than yours, or that you would necessarily have to follow someone else's rules. Hi,
Right.
kitty. Oh, what's that cat's name?
This is Rocky. He always wants to be part of the show, right, Rocky?
I love it. I love it. So I'm hoping that these ladies are taking something from this, some really important shifts. It's,
Well,
you know,
I want to say one more thing. Yeah, I want to say one more thing too, which is just that, you know, you just hit on something, which is the statistics, and, you know, all that stuff's based on averages. Okay, Rocky, you can stop playing with the plastic bag now. Hang on. Plastic bag, and he just loves to, like, make the noise. You can always, you know, focus on those statistics, but those statistics are averages. And if you want to think of yourself as average, then go ahead and put yourself in with all those statistics. But, you know, I would hope that you're not gonna that you understand that you are not average, because if you were average, you would already have kids. Right? And so there's something about you that's not average. You're an outlier. And an outlier doesn't mean something bad. An outlier means that, you know, you went on adventures and did things that most other people didn't do. And now you're being called by your soul or your source or your spirit or whatever to become a mother. Well, guess what? You know, that's above, you're already outside of just the average person, that you're thinking about that already, or that you're thinking about that now, and that you want that now. So look at yourself as above average, as way above average, as way beyond average, because that's where you have to be. That's where you need to be if you're going to, you know, beat that average odds of what you see. And here's the other thing too, is that you say, you know, but they don't know me. And that's why every person that I talk to, they'll ask me, you know, what do you think my odds are? I always say 50-50, because you're either going to get pregnant or you're not. I don't know what your exact odds are. I don't know because you are just you. I'm not going to put you in this bucket with all these other people and judge you based on that. I'm just going to work with you, and you're either going to get pregnant or you're not. So it's 50%, and that's it. End of story. It doesn't matter what age you are. So if you start looking at it that way, hey, I got 50% chance. I'm either going to be pregnant or I'm not going to be pregnant. The great news about not being pregnant, though, is that doesn't have to be the end of your journey to becoming a mother. there are so many other ways to become a mother. And so even if you end up on tails, if you call heads and you end up on tails, you can just pick up that coin, put it in your pocket, and you can go, and there's so many different ways to express that spirit of motherhood and that heart of a mother. Doesn't have to be your DNA, doesn't have to be even a child that you give birth to. Trust me, because I have no biological kids, and I couldn't imagine loving my children more than I do. So, in fact, sometimes I think if they were my biological kids, we would probably be like this,
That's
like
so funny.
so,
Yeah,
um,
I think that's really an important point, Chris. And I think that when we're stuck in fear and when we're spinning and when we are way more focused on statistics than we are focused on our own lives and our own resilience and our own decision to be successful, it's really easy to get stuck in that place and find ourselves constantly, at the mercy of what somebody else tells us. I mean, that question that people pose to you is very telling.
mm-hmm.
What do you think my chances are? How about asking a smarter question?
How about this? What do you think they are?
Yeah, exactly. See, we're on the same page. Yeah, I mean, don't you think that's a way smarter question?
It is, but on the other hand, I know what people are getting at, because
Right.
because they know, if they've read my bio and they've kind of checked me out, they know I've been doing this a long time. They know that I have seen thousands of people. It's not even probably, but of course, maybe in their mind, if they're just meeting me and they're asking this question, maybe they're not 100% sure of that, but at least they know that I'm an expert, and so they really want my expert opinion based on what I know, and I can understand that. And that's why I tell everybody the same thing, 50-50, because at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to I'm not going to tell you 10% or 5%, because that's just like, first of all, it's a guess. It's a wild guess,
Yeah. Well, I would always tell women this, like, if you catch yourself asking that question, for better or worse, do the simple exercise. What do you wish Chris would say? And then say it to yourself.
There you
Because
go.
in the end, what you decide is success for you and what you decide your chances are going to be. That's actually what matters. And, go listen to my podcast episode number 8 with Dr. Bernie Siegel, world-renowned cancer physician, surgeon. Like, look at what sometimes when we wear the jacket of our diagnosis. So for those women that are out there with, when people love to pin, oh, it's because you're old. If you're running around telling yourself that somebody in a white coat told you you were old and that's where you leave the conversation, then you'll be old. So whatever it is whatever validation you want from someone else, tell yourself that. You don't need them to give you that validation. I mean, I 100% agree, Chris, that, people are just wanting, I need somebody else's expertise to tell me this, but nobody is an expert on you.
That's right.
And that has huge value.
Well, the other thing too is, when you're asking a doctor, the thing you have to understand about most doctors is they're terrified of failure. So they're always going to be very conservative in their predictions, because it hedges their own ego against failure, basically, and most of my doctor friends would be like, nuh-uh. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, it sucks to fail your patient. It doesn't feel good when your patient doesn't succeed. So by setting really low expectations, you're sort of like hedging yourself, to just kind of go into it with low expectations. And if you happen to succeed, great, Um, and so, whereas, in my world, I am always, my thing is not to fear failure, but to embrace success, and to look on the other side of that equation and say, I totally believe that you can do this. So I'm not going to, again, I'm not going to put any kind of percentage on it other than 50-50, because we know the fact is you're either going to get pregnant or you're not going to get pregnant. And that's the only thing we can know right now. So everybody gets 50-50 shot with me,
Right.
basically.
Yeah, and it looks like we're getting some comments here. Let's see here. Seema, I see you. You say you turned 40 in a few months, and I used to think that was old. My mindset is so different now, thanks to you, Rosanne. I look forward to being an older, wiser mother. Amen to that. Hey, Chandra, good to see you. Tanya, Kimberly Smith. And Daphne Abden says, it's not really easy. I don't know what she's referring to, but okay. And then ITNOIN, I'm not sure how to say that, but I find the hardest part is to deal with the pressure from doctors. It's harder to find a doctor who believes in you after you turn 40. Well, there are plenty of physicians and other alternative practitioners out there, love, that have seen plenty of success over 40. You've got two of them here that see these success stories all the time. So the game is different, certainly, after 40, but so are a lot of things. We have to eat differently after we turn 40, Chris. There's different considerations. So it doesn't mean that we go, take a trip down geriatric lane necessarily, but it's a different game. And there's nothing wrong with that. It being a different game doesn't mean it's a bad game or any of that. So let's see here. Also,
Well, I would say, let me just say about the pressure from doctors. I mean, the bottom line is you don't need your doctor to believe in you, because if it's an IVF doctor or a conventional doctor, because what they're doing is very, in a sense, very mechanical. So if you believe that, let's say you take your car to the mechanic, does the mechanic need to believe in your car in order to fix it, or in order to turn these little screws and do whatever they do to take your car from where it is to now running? No, they don't. They just do what they do. They diagnose, then they repair the part or replace the part or whatever. So don't just believe in yourself. That's what it boils down to. I mean, don't wait for a doctor to say, bless you, I now believe in you. That's like, you go wait for the priest's blessing. Like, you can't do that in this case. You have to bless yourself, believe in yourself, and walk in that office with like, hey, I really don't care what you think, doctor. I believe I can do this. So we're going to do this.
exactly.
The end. And if that doctor refuses, like some of them will, they'll say, well, I just won't treat you because your AMH is this, or your age is this, or your blah, blah, blah. Well, then just go somewhere else. I mean, because at the end of the day, there are doctors who may not, shower you with optimism, but they're not going to take away your choice, which I think is wrong anyway. But
Right.
they're going to allow you to do what you want to do, obviously within safety, but at the same time, I mean, they're going to let you try. So believe in yourself. Don't wait for anybody to tell you that you can or can't do anything.
Right. That's so well said, Chris. And so let's see if these ladies have any other questions for us. But I hope that, so what do you think? Let's talk about quick takeaways for the ladies when we're talking about taking the fear out of 40. Like the top two things I would tell women to do is, one, just recognize it's going to be a different game. Different is not bad. And be really clear about what's awesome about having a baby at, near, or in your 40s, because that's what's going to keep you moving forward. If this really matters to you and your desire is to be a mom, let go of all the nonsense about, oh, I should have done it sooner. You have to trust that you're in the right place at the right time. You're here for a reason. You made great choices prior to this, which are leading you to being in a situation where you probably have had never had more money, more opportunities, more stability, things that are going to be really important to you now at this point in your life, having a child. So there's some real upside to having babies in your 40s, and don't take on other people's fear. People love to smear their fear all over you, and you get to say no to that, and you get to be really clear about why you're doing this and also why you're doing it now. And when you're super clear on that, it doesn't matter what anyone else says or whatever statistic you're faced with, you're going to decide to be successful. What would you say, Chris?
First of all, it's your journey. So I would recommend you don't talk about it with most people. Um, I think, with maybe a coach or a doctor or somebody who you trust. But other than that, there's no reason for you to be going around talking about it. In my book, one of the things that I mentioned, I think is, and I can't remember it right now exactly what I called it, but it's the law of silence, or it's some practice where basically you just learn how to like do your thing and not talk your thing. Because at the end of the day, like that fear that Rosanne was just mentioning, that people are, a lot of times projecting onto you, like saying things like, oh, really? You want to have a baby at 42? Wow. Man, you're going to be like 60 when the kid graduates high school. Those are the kind of things like that. If you're talking about it all the time and you're just loosely like mentioning it everywhere, you're always inviting that. And most people don't understand and don't have the level of empathy or compassion to understand how that might hurt you. And what a lot of people do is get angry. They'll get angry at the other person, like, "Ooh, how could you say that?" But at the end of the day, you have to be the one who takes charge and responsibility for what comes out of your mouth. And if you're opening your mouth and you're saying those kind of things, you're going to end up, no doubt, hearing some pretty undesirable feedback. So that's one thing I would say is just learn how to keep your counsel and learn how to be on your journey and not talking about your journey. The other thing I would say is the three foundations. Again, I always go back to my book, but it's all in there. Three foundations of making sure that you always get your rest. That's the number one thing. At least 8 hours, if not 9 hours of sleep a night, especially if you're 40 or over. As we get older, that is the most important thing for enhancing and amplifying what we call our regenerative capacity. And that regenerative capacity, that is the foundation of your fertility, the end. That's it. So the more your body is, the more powerful your own body's healing capacity is expressing itself, the more powerful your body's ability to create new life. So rest, water, and I'm not talking like, it's funny because I just got a message in my Facebook group, Axelrad Clinic Academy, where the person told me that they have just been reading the book. They started doing the hydration and they realized that they thought they were drinking enough water, but they were not drinking near enough water. And since they started doing it, their energy levels have like gone way up. So, this is 6 bottles a day, 6 bottles like this. Okay. And you just sit and you just drink a bottle and you finish the whole bottle. Then you wait a couple hours, you do another one, wait a couple hours, do another one. And you know what? By the end of the day, you should have drank 6. And if you do that consistently every single day, finally, the other thing is kind of a tie between stop beating the crap out of yourself and also just really make sure your carbs, your simple carbohydrates and your starches are kept to a bare minimum. Focus more on fats and proteins. You don't have to go all out keto, but the Sun Cycle diet, which again is is a diet plan that I invented that is kind of a hybrid of a few different things, really does emphasize, it's kind of, I call it keto light basically. And that's where I've had the most success with people. And it works for most people, unless you're vegetarian or vegan, then you're kind of on your own, except for the fact that you can go look up vegetarian and vegan keto. And if you follow that, you'll probably be on a good track diet wise. So those 3 foundations are like gold. And, most people think, is that it? And I'm like, yeah. If everybody did all those things every day and was just patient and just allowed your body to go through the healing process and the regenerative process that it needs to go through to get to that fertile state, and just don't be in a hurry, just keep doing it and keep doing it. It's like a singer or a pianist who's going to practice their scales and practice their scales, and then they're going to learn some chords. And the next thing you know, if they just stay consistent with all those fundamentals, that's the one that's going to end up playing on a big stage in front of thousands of people. That's the one that's going to end up with a Grammy or whatever, right? Because they just stuck to it.
I love it.
And the foundations, even though they're simple, stick to them. They never fail. They never fail. I can tell you that. I can tell you that right now. Never. They never fail.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and there's another like minor twist to something that you said that about, you know, if you're going to talk to, like, I agree with you that we have to, whenever we're going for something big in our lives, whether it's beating the odds to have a baby in your 40s or anything else, if you're going to share this information with anyone, share it with someone who's done it, right? Like someone who actually has the experience, because you're going to get different feedback from people that have stood on the sidelines all of their lives, have not taken risks, have not gone out there on the battlefield to go do something truly extraordinary. You know, there's going to be some people that had kids in their 20s and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so old. It's like, if you're going to share, go find people, whether it's having a baby in your 40s, crushing it in business, crushing it in school, or whatever. Talk to
Changing
people who
careers.
achieve. Huh?
Changing careers.
Yeah. Go talk to only people who have actually gone outside of the box, because you're going to have so much more support from people who have actually done it than people who have not really done it.
And that's what I mean by being an outlier.
Right.
You know, you're not, you know, I was just having this conversation with someone last week about I like to ride motorcycles, you know, and I've ridden motorcycles since I was 12 years old. Motorcycles are dangerous. Yes, everybody knows that, you know. And, you know, but when you tell someone who's never ridden a motorcycle, who's only driven a car their whole life, that you're going to go buy this really fast motorcycle, of course, their only thing they want to say is something really negative and fearful. And it just, you know, even when you're out on the road riding the motorcycle, you just realize people who are willing to get on a motorcycle and ride a motorcycle don't think the same as people who are like to be safe and drive a car.
Right.
And you're out there, if you are on this journey and you're really, really like wanting to have a baby, no matter what your age is, really, but especially if you're getting to the point in your late 30s, early 40s, and you're just hearing all this negative feedback, you got to think of yourself as, hey, I'm the one on the motorcycle here, and I have to be more focused on my journey and what's going on so that I can be safe. And I don't need to listen to all these people in these cars who just like to play it safe and who just want everything to be super organized and super, you know, like regimented, because I got to be creative. I got to step outside the box. I got to live outside the box, and I'm willing to do that.
I love that. And you know what, Chris? I don't know if you know this about me, but I actually had a motorcycle license in California. I actually know why. You know, where your eyes go, you go. And I think that's a really good metaphor here as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, if you're looking over there, your wheel is going over there if you're riding on a motorcycle. I mean, but I think that analogy is actually really apropos on this journey, especially when you're at near or in your 40s. You know, everyone in their cars is going to be driving by thinking whatever they want to think. But if you're on the two wheels, the one taking the risk, the one who is also has the joy of the wind blowing through your hair, well, at least in Idaho, because we don't wear helmets here, but anyway, you know, you're getting that fresh air blowing, like, just be willing to do that. Be willing to stay in your lane and keep focused on your journey.
That's it.
Isn't that we just kind of veered off into like a motorcycle.
But here's the thing. You have to, if you want to make that journey successful, you have to stay focused on your lane and what's in front of you. And that's it. As soon as you start rubbernecking and looking around, you're asking for trouble. And that's the same thing with anything, really. And especially with this fertility thing, the more you're comparing yourself to other people, you're just sucking the energy out of yourself and out of your journey. And it's just going to make it even harder.
Yes. And we have here the Low Lamps Bear Club, Claire Kopp chiming in, got pregnant and at 44 in November. She did not carry it to term, but she is still in the process of conceiving naturally. Our prayers and so much love are going out to you, Claire. And Seema asks, what should we be doing differently health-wise to help our bodies? I think Chris answered that question. Is it the 3 pillars or the 3 foundations? Hopefully
3 foundations.
Okay. Hopefully I'm not anyway.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things with vitamins, and that's where you start to get into some really specific things that, it's, that's where the one size there, the 3 foundations is definitely a one size fits all thing. It's like every human benefits from that. But when you start talking about medicines, you really start, then you start to get to where you need to know sort of what you're trying to address and what you're trying to accelerate and correct. So
so reach out to Chris, Seema, if you have more specific questions about that. I think that talking to the man is a really good idea. And also we say Hengame, hi, Rosanne and Chris. What if you're trying for number 2 and have a toddler at home? It is absolutely impossible to get enough sleep every night constantly. What do you recommend in this situation? Well, first of all, Hengame, you might need to get somebody to sleep train your son. And that might be a really good idea for you to support your own regenerative health. If your child's not sleeping through the night by the time they're 2, you might want to get some support with that, because mama needs rest, dad needs rest, child needs rest. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, obviously sleep training is helpful, but I just think at the end of the day, if you just double down on as much of those 3 foundations as you possibly can, that would be how you deal with that. Don't worry too much about those things. Don't let it freak you out. I mean, I did say that sleep is absolutely one of the most important things, but if you're doing the other things and taking care of yourself, and also what I would say too is love your son. Just love on your son as much as you can, because it's that heart and it's that love and it's that kindness that just creates calm and peace in your heart that will, so you're not leaking as much energy into frustration and all these painful emotions, anger, regret, shame, guilt, all those things. When you're leaking energy into those emotions, that energy just goes nowhere. That energy just is gone. But if you're expressing love and kindness, that brings you into the moment, and that energy actually is something that circulates within you and helps to really replenish you. So that's what I would recommend, because you just can't necessarily, you can't fully, you have a child, this is part of having a child. Like this is the part of, you're out in the air now, and kids, nothing will bring chaos to your life like a child. So, you're not going to be able to control a lot of this, especially if there's a child present.
Progress, not perfection, Hengame. Progress, not perfection, right? Chris, there's also, and the best way for people to contact you is through your website. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I can just put the address right here. No wait. Here you go.
Let me see.
I don't know if people can see that or not, but
it's axelradclinic.com, right?
Yeah, it shows red on mine for some reason.
Here, Axelrad Clinic. Clinic. .com. Okay. So Axelrad Clinic. Did I spell clinic right? Okay, there we go. So awesome. And then Kendra's on. She is, I don't say the I word, Kendra, because I actually don't believe in it and I don't give it any energy. It's the opposite of fertility. So I don't say the I word at all, but I know what you're saying.
I word.
Yeah. We don't give that. Everyone's on a spectrum. We don't give that any energy. And Agata says she's doing what you told us to do, Chris, about drinking water, getting more sleep. She says she feels better and does not feel the need to drink caffeine.
Yeah. And that just tells you that the fundamental energy of your body is so much stronger just already as far as the caffeine thing, not having to deal with that. So it's good.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, ladies, we are so glad that you caught up with us. If you want to learn more about our respective practices, you can go to frommaybe2baby.com for the Fearlessly Fertile method. You can go to the axelradclinic.com
Mhm.
for Chris and his fantastic work. And any parting remarks, Chris, that you wanted to say, or have you laid it down?
This was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I'm so glad to see so many of you guys here. So, ladies,
How
go
many people were here?
at our height. I think we had, oh gosh, I thought I saw almost 40, but like 40 on a time at a time when we're talking about taking the
That's
fear out of
great.
40. So, anyways, great. And we're in the middle of the day for some people. So, loves, I hope that you guys take all of this information, think about it, implement whatever you see fit here, and just know we will see you again next Monday.
Yes.
All right. Well, awesome, Chris. Have an amazing week yourself, sir.